Hannibal Barca, aged 31, supreme commander of the Empire of Carthage, has set his sights on Rome. It is the 3rd century BC. Hannibal has twice crushed the armies of the Roman Republic. Now he aims to destroy them once and for all. Taking charge of Hannibal's army is a team of police officers from Bedfordshire, comprising 2 generals.
Steve, do we know where the cavalry are? We need some feedback.
And 2 lieutenants.
We're a little busy right now, I think.
Watched closely by 2 military experts. Confronting the largest Roman army yet seen, and armed with state-of-the-art technology, our team will attempt to make their mark on history. This is Time Commanders. Joining Eddie Mayer inside the command centre are a team of police officers from Bedfordshire. Cliff Dixon, 50, General. Sarah Wilkinson, 32, General. Steve Dilley, 45, Lieutenant. Claire Simon, 38, Lieutenant.
Let me introduce you to a couple of people who are experts in this field. Our historians up there in the gantry. Have a look, give them a wave. That's Eric and Adrian. They're going to be watching your every move today, and they're going to come down right at the end, no matter what happened, and tell you how well or badly you did.
Dr. Eric Nussbacher, Senior Lecturer, War Studies, Sandhurst. Dr. Adrian Goldsworthy, Military Historian.
Now, you're going to have a little time before the battle starts to gain some information, gather intelligence, if you will. You're familiar with that in the police, obviously. Grab those clipboards and take notes, because they may need to be reproduced in court later.
Have you got a pencil?
Yes, you've got a pencil. That's the thing in your other hand. You all right there? Everything's going to be fine. Now, the battle you're going to fight is the Battle of Cannae. You're going to be controlling Hannibal's troops against the Romans. Take a look at this.
The year is 216 BC. The place is Cannae, southern Italy, the battleground for 2 rival empires. Rome and Carthage have shattered an uneasy peace of 20 years. Carthage, the North African empire of the Western Mediterranean, is led by Hannibal, a tactical genius. Witness to the Roman humiliation of Carthage when he was only a child, the 31-year-old Hannibal has sworn revenge. His plan is to crush the Romans in their heartland, smashing their armies and turning their allies against them. Striking at the very heart of the Roman Republic, Hannibal has marched 1,000 miles overland, through Spain, across the Alps, and into northern Italy. Hannibal's tactics at the battles of Trebia and Lake Trasimene have left 100,000 Roman soldiers dead, cementing his reputation as a military genius with a flair for careful ambush and clever use of his superior cavalry. Now fighting for its very survival, Rome has assembled the largest single army the Republic has ever seen, some 86,000 men. This army is heavily equipped and trained to attack with a central legionary line, flanked by cavalry. Together, the legions form an almost impenetrable wall. But if cavalry and legions can be separated in battle, the Roman plan may fall apart. The Roman army confronts Hannibal at Cannae, pitching camp not far from Hannibal's site. In previous encounters, Hannibal has lured the Romans into battle, baiting them with his agile skirmishers. But this time, both armies hold back. The 2 leaders of the Roman army are confident of victory, but are very different men. Paulus, the more experienced of the 2, is cautious. Varro, on the other hand, is battle-hungry, arrogant, and bent on glory. On the day of battle, it is the headstrong Varro who will be in charge. August the 1st, 216 BC, the eve of battle, is a warm summer evening. Hannibal, who has lost all of his famous elephants, is heavily outnumbered. This is the largest Roman army ever assembled. And the narrow battlefield chosen by the Romans could protect their flanks from Hannibal's superior cavalry. If Hannibal wins, he will strike a devastating blow at the heart of the Roman Republic, crippling its power for years to come. If he is defeated, he can expect no mercy in a hostile land far from home. The stakes are high. Battle is imminent.
Well, there you have it, the Battle of Cannae. You'll want to know more about this battle, and I can help you in all sorts of ways. First of all, have a look at the battlefield. All right, that's how it looks. And also to help you, Adam, our technician, right at the back here, has control of the giant screen in front of you. Use this time to get the lay of the land.
Do we know which is north and south?
Good start.
The battlefield is clearly defined. The river Orphidius cuts along one side of a narrow plain. The other side is bordered by rising hills. To the left, a group of trees provides some cover, but the battleground is open and flat. In this constricted arena, with little room for maneuver, whoever can seize the flanks will hold a distinct combat advantage.
Can we just focus in on the river there?
Yeah, that could be useful because it's a potential crossing, isn't it?
So the salient terrain feature that they've got to look at is the river and that constricted ground between the river and that rise.
They want open space as much as they can get.
So it's almost like a fencing pist, isn't it? I mean, we're on this narrow strip.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's why the Romans chose this. And the reason's got to be that they think it's got the advantages that they need so that they can cope with not having Hannibal's cavalry riding rings around them as it has before. So it's very much a Roman choice.
Let's have a look at some of the forces then. And it's the lieutenants who are going to be down at the front doing that. Each of you will be in charge of one part of your forces. It's those parts of the army that you'll be using to do the fighting. So go down and familiarise yourself with the forces and tell your generals how they're laid out. And in the meantime, generals, you can be using Adam to have a look at your forces on the big screen.
The team's lieutenants will have to discover as much as they can about Hannibal's troops, an army drawn from across the ancient world, battle-hardened and experienced, which has already thrashed the Romans twice before.
Hannibal is the bugbear, the bogeyman. He's this strange magician who's been able to conjure up ambushes from anywhere and just smash armies that in the past have walked over virtually every opponent. But Hannibal's doing all these things that the Romans had never dreamt of doing. They just didn't think an army would be capable of.
During their recce, there are three key things the lieutenants must discover. First, they control three kinds of cavalry, each of which can be used in different ways. Second, their Libyan infantry, armed with terrifying pikes, are most effective in a flanking maneuver. And third, their Gallic infantry, fierce and aggressive, should be thrown directly at the Roman front line. To ensure success, the team must coordinate these multinational forces against the largest Roman army ever assembled.
There's a lot of different troop types for them to try and realise what they're going to do and how they're going to coordinate all of this. So they've got quite a lot to do here, and it'll be interesting to see how much of this they pick up. So this really is a very, very professional, very organised, very well-coordinated army, despite the fact that visually it looks as if people are from all over the world, certainly from the Western Mediterranean, loads of different ethnic contingents. But this is a very tight, well-controlled unit by the time he gets to Cannae.
Steve, do we know what the breakdown is that we've got at the moment, generally?
We've got some Iberian skirmishers.
You're getting as much information as you can, lieutenants.
We're trying to, yes.
Steve's information gathering seems patchy. He's spotted his lightest troops, but may have missed his critical heavy units.
Right, Claire, you happy?
Yeah.
Steve? Let's come back up, see what you've got.
Now Steve and Claire have to brief their superior officers.
Was that useful?
Yes, it was, yeah.
OK, what did you find?
Well, we've got our general. That's the cavalry unit right at the very back.
The rear.
Yep.
Yep.
Where you'd expect the general to be.
Yep, that's fine. Skirmishers, what's the...
They're
Are you getting all these laid out as you're describing this? You should use the map.
Oh, right.
the long row to the left-hand side, just behind the trees, and that's quite, I think, significant because they're out of sight. The unit immediately next to them, on their right, is Gallic infantry.
Now, Hannibal had these right at the front of the battle. He knew that the Gauls were for a warrior society that valued being conspicuously brave. You know, you had to be out in front. You had to be more spectacular than anyone else in what you were doing. And you taunted the enemy and you told your enemy who you were before you killed him.
In fact, all the darker colours there would appear to be Gallic infantry. The two units, if you like, immediately in front of the general, their weaponry is long spears. So that'd be quite useful against cavalry.
Steve's identified his heavily armed pikemen, but has he understood that he should use them on the flanks?
There's a mix of people there.
And all of these have been involved in battle as well for quite a while.
These are real veterans. They know each other, they know their officers. They've got used to working together. It's got Spaniards and Gauls and Numidians and Libyans and Balearic slingers and all this sort of thing.
Steve's in charge of a vast collection of multi-ethnic infantry troops, which leaves all of Hannibal's cavalry under Claire's control.
Claire, what did you find?
I've got heavy cavalry. They are on horseback with long spears and full armour, and they've got like a medium range. And then there are 3 lots, as you can see, of Spanish cavalry. They've got short swords, light armour. They do have shields. They're very sturdy, and they're particularly good fighters. And then on the right-hand side of them is the, I think, Numbar cavalry.
Claire means the Numidian cavalry.
What does that say? Bows and arrows, no armour. These have got the furthest range, but the least protection.
OK.
You happy with your position? You did some great information gathering there. You're not surprised, are you? This is what you do for a living.
Well, you need to know what you've got, don't you? And strengths and weaknesses, potentially.
Believe me, it's impressive. It's impressive. I can help you a little further with some information about key troops. Again, I know you'll take careful note and you'll use this when it comes to battle. First of all, the Libyan infantry.
Libyan infantry, well-trained and disciplined, armed with long spear and shield, capable of complex manoeuvres.
What are you learning from this?
Capable of complex manoeuvres, so obviously tactically they could be extremely good in terms of the complexity of it.
It's your modern-day SAS.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it, doesn't it?
The Libyan heavy infantry that Hannibal's got with him, they're some of the best troops he's got. They're armed with long spears, and they are trained in something very much like the old phalanx formation used by Greek soldiers for a very long time. As long as the Libyans keep their cohesion, they're very hard to beat.
That information should prove useful, as should this about the Numidian cavalry.
Numidian cavalry, agile and tireless, armed with long-range javelins and skilled in ambush. No body armor.
Tireless, fast. Javelins, 30-metre jabs.
Yep.
And skilled in ambush.
The Numidian cavalry are expert horsemen, trained from birth. Hannibal has often used them to ambush his enemies. At the Battle of Trebia, they were sent to provoke the Roman army into combat.
If you're a heavily armoured Roman, the Numidians come up and throw some javelins at you. They may not kill many, but if you try and reach them, their lighter ponies will always outpace yours. And they're quite adept at breaking up into individuals so that you don't know who to chase, and then reforming. That's how they fight. They're used to this.
And a word now about the Spanish heavy cavalry.
Spanish heavy cavalry, battle-seasoned and relentless, heavily armed with sword and shield, but weak against infantry front lines. The Spanish heavy cavalrymen are among the longest-serving veterans in Hannibal's army. Hugely experienced, they're used to smashing their way through enemy troops and form the backbone of Hannibal's forces.
Weakness, poor against front line of infantry.
all the time you're taking this information, you should be thinking about your battle plan. But before you can form any kind of plan, you'll want to know information about the enemy troops. This is the point where one of your lieutenants can go down to our technician on the left and find out more about the enemy. OK, Claire? Off you go. And again, the generals, have a look at where the enemy are on the big screen. You might find that useful.
Now the team are familiar with their own troops, it's time for them to take a look at their enemy. Claire's only got one chance to send her scouts to spy on the Romans, so she must use her time well. The team should spot the Romans' overwhelming numbers, but will they notice the weakness of their cavalry? And can Claire identify the Romans' secret weapon, their heavily armed tactical reserve?
To some extent, the sheer size of this army gives Hannibal some clues about how it's going to have to fight. He can look out across this plain. We've been saying it's constricted on both sides. High ground to Hannibal's right, the river to his left. The Romans have vast numbers of heavy infantry. Normally they spread them out in these lines with little units called maniples, about 120, 160 men, and then next to each maniple will be a gap.
Which gives them fighting room, elbow room, maneuver room.
So the Romans are sacrificing, again, their flexibility is going. Instead, there's this reliance on just brute force, sheer power. Drive those hard-fighting heavy infantrymen. No subtlety, no maneuver, straight at the enemy, smash a way through.
First impressions as they come into view?
Yeah, very organised.
Very organised.
Very strict. Yeah, just stop.
These are old-fashioned legions.
Every Roman citizen is obliged to serve, and they serve in a capacity that fits in with the property they've got. So the wealthiest, they can afford a horse, they can afford armour, they'll be the cavalry. People a bit less well off than that, the sort of the farmers, the men who can afford enough for the protective equipment they need to stand in these main battle lines, they'll be the legionaries, the bulk, the heavy infantry. That's the real heart of the army. And then the poor, or those too young to serve with the main infantry lines, they'll be your skirmishers, your light infantry. So all they need, a helmet, a bit of animal skin to decorate it, a small shield and some javelins. This is basically an army of farmers, and they're fighting for their land. They've seen Hannibal's army marauding through Italy, and farmers like theirs have been dispossessed, their places have been burnt down, the crops have been taken. It's a real humiliation. They feel this shame bitterly. So this is a very highly motivated army, but it isn't professional in the same way that Hannibal's army is.
They're just going for the old strength in numbers,
Yeah,
aren't
it looks like it.
2 units of cavalry with long pikes by the looks of it.
Put another unit in, Sarah, alongside them. Okay.
Cliff has instantly put Sarah into a staff role. Cliff has got Sarah sorting out the map board instantly.
His team's looking very good so far.
They're looking dangerously efficient.
Yeah, good. Well, they're going to need to be, because this is a tough battle to do it as well as Hannibal did.
What kind of weaponry have they got? Are they all tooled up?
Just pan into
short
these so we can get.
swords.
Yes, they do, don't they?
Yeah, they're very light.
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, I can see now.
And they've also javelins.
We heard
They're on foot as well.
We heard their tactics before, was that the fact they had the main thrust through the centre with flanks with the cavalry both sides.
Yeah, they've got the longest sleeps.
Probably scare you to death
they've-
and disrupt you with the front units and then finish you off with the back.
The idea is the Romans should feed troops in, one line after the next. Keep on reinforcing the fighting line, and in the end, you'll break through.
It's a big meat grinder.
It is, yeah.
They're not going to be able to move very quickly, I wouldn't have thought. They're fairly heavy in terms of the armament that they've got there.
But Cliff's underestimated Roman mobility. A Roman cavalry troop has spotted the team's scouts exposed in the center and is riding towards them at speed. First blood has gone to the Romans.
OK, then. So we've got, well, how do you say that word? Equites?
Horses.
Horses, yeah.
Well,
Oh, are they?
Equites.
Right, horse, that'll do. So
Right
equites.
here, yeah.
Horse will do. We're fine with
Horse.
that.
And then we've got 2 rows of equites. Yeah.
Same as on the left.
Another one here. Then we've got Tamari. There's 5 rows of 3 deep, are those?
Claire means the Triarii, the Roman tactical reserve, heavily armed with long spears. She's uncovered the enemy's secret weapon.
Are we happy with
Is that
our
it?
own?
Yep.
All right, come back around the table. Having laid this out beautifully, if winning battles was understanding where everyone started, then you've already won. But sadly, that's not how it works. So what are you going to do?
There's so many of them. I think they'll just come out and attack across the plain, and because they've got twice as many as we have, that's what they'll gamble on.
General Sarah is right. She has instantly seen that the Romans' plan is simple and straightforward.
So, as you come into this battle, the Carthaginians know that the Romans are going to come blasting through. The Romans know that the Romans are just going to come blasting through. To some extent, everybody knows what's going to happen when the battle starts.
They have a hot-headed general, even though previous has been ambush.
No, you've got his previous there, have you?
Well, what we've got is that
Ran some checks
Hannibal
earlier.
previously, in terms of the Romans, has used ambush as his tactics. But because we have somebody potentially with a hot head, certainly if there's a scent of victory, he could possibly be drawn into it.
We've got the better position because we've got the trees in our favour.
So the key thing that was mentioned in the briefing was if you can split the cavalry from the infantry, that's a key area.
Although Cliff is ignoring Sarah's valid advice, he has spotted a crucial Roman weakness. The Roman army relies on cavalry to protect its flanks. But can our team, like Hannibal, exploit the Romans' chief Achilles' heel?
What did you learn in the briefing that's going to be useful to you?
Separation of the cavalry and the legion, and the attack forward with cavalry.
So what's the strategy?
I think we wait for them to come on to
Draw
us
them on.
and then, yeah.
Bearing in mind we do have the terrain that potentially could split up cavalry-wise, so we have this funneling effect here. It's whether or not they would seek to come round there.
They've worked out where the Romans are and what they're doing. They've got this massive concentration of very heavily armed infantry packed in the centre, heading towards the centre of your army. So now you've got to balance all the disparate elements of the Carthaginian army. It's a very difficult thing to do compared to the Romans, where their plan is set and simple. They're organised so far, but how do they try to use the different elements in the army to take the weight of that attack somehow and blunt it?
It would appear that our tactics in the past have been to lure them into the centre, and given that they appear to be up for a fight, this is a make or break, as far as they're concerned.
But we're talking about fairly hit and run to try and draw them on, yeah?
Okay, so show me what you're going to do.
OK. I think we put the lighter of the cavalry, which is ideal to engage. Should we separate those at all in terms of using them on both flanks? Because I'm thinking of drawing off the cavalry on both sides.
The first unit
could
can
do
hit and
that.
run, and then be like relieved
Rolling.
by the heavy.
Yeah.
You can have your infantry further back here, so that once we've got them in the middle here, we can just chop them down.
So are we going on both flanks at the same time?
Sarah's suggestion of ensnaring the advancing Roman infantry in a heavily armed trap is the best tactic to follow an initial cavalry assault. But have her teammates listen to their second general's advice?
So we put the Numbar cavalry first, followed by the Spanish cavalry, then the heavy cavalry behind that.
But we're having to split them as well.
Yeah, so they're
Yeah.
going to have to move out in a movement that way, and then they've got
Course.
Steve's division to back up potentially on foot.
Let's be having you. Deploy your troops.
See the trees on the right-hand
Yeah,
side?
yeah.
We need them to be to the right, but no further forward of those trees.
He's got a clear idea of what he's going to use his cavalry for.
And in reality, Hannibal doesn't just want a victory, he wants an overwhelming victory.
So, in order to make it worth his while to fight at all, Hannibal, our team, has really got to conduct a massacre.
So I'm assuming that we're going to have all of these coming straight at us. And what the intention is to try and engage here and here and draw the cavalry using this terrain, the trees left and right, and draw the cavalry off. If they don't, if the cavalry come in, then potentially we can come in around the back of that with our cavalry and start causing disruption from the rear of that. The river is not crossable, so they're not able to get round behind us from that point. So we have a number of clear defensive points if we can draw them on.
So you're absolutely in position and you're waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
It's like a stakeout, isn't it?
It is.
I don't think Cliff needs any input from us here. I think Cliff knows what he's doing.
Claire, Steve, how are we doing in terms of making it reality?
Well, at the moment, we've got a bit of...
I think the enemy's about to make it reality.
They're moving.
Yep.
Cliff. They're moving.
Ah, they're coming on.
Tired of waiting, the impetuous General Varro forces the battle. The largest Roman army in history begins to advance on Hannibal's outnumbered troops.
Claire, Steve?
Yes.
They are coming straight in line, exactly as we'd hoped. So at the moment, we've got nothing changing.
Right.
Where are the pikes going to be positioned, Steve?
At the moment, we've got one on the right flank behind the cavalry and one on the left flank flying the flag.
What now do we have in the middle?
We have infantry with spears, but not poles.
Right. So we can put spears in if we need to. And the issue is to try and draw them as far on as we can. And now either one, they're going to have to disrupt and go through trees, or they're going to have to most probably come behind. Right. So the further we can draw them on, the better. Plus, all the time they're getting tireder.
Yeah. So are we ready to advance ours then?
No, keep them drawing.
Right.
We ain't in a hurry.
All right.
Let them wear themselves out.
I would calm under pressure, Cliff, aren't you? Your lieutenants are saying, should we advance? And you're saying, no, it's fine.
Draw them on.
You're sure you've got the right strategy?
Well, I'm just thinking this is August. It's the end of a long, hot day. We have some very heavy armour. Let them do all the work. Let them get tired going across there.
Cliff is relying on the weather to slow down the Roman advance. But the Romans are marching at a steady pace, conserving their energy for the battle to come.
It's the infantry that's going to win.
The infantry are like a machine. You get them going, and the heavy infantry will just go grinding on ahead. Whereas the cavalry require a bit more judgment.
Cavalry are just there to protect their flanks for long enough to allow them to win.
But Cliff's still not convinced he's got the right troops in the right place to challenge the oncoming Romans.
Steve, Claire, I'm not quite sure who's controlling what, but there's also a suggestion with Sarah as to whether or not, as we draw them back, we put the pikemen at the front.
Unless we give them something to look at, they're going to...
Because the pikemen are there, because they've got big long things and they can stab horses, and the ones they don't stab, you can send the cavalry after.
Once again, Sarah's spotted the strengths of her key troops. But will her male colleagues acknowledge her input?
Did you hear that, Steve, in terms of pikes? Come.
The pikemen are there because they've got big sticks and they can stab the horses. And then the soldiers all fall off, and you can attack them with your infantryman and have a second wave of cavalry.
I'm just thinking about having a line across the centre so that they've actually got something to advance against, and then pull those back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's like a horseshoe.
And they hopefully will be the infantry that are advancing through that middle.
Cliff, do you think you'd have been stuck if you'd been Hannibal himself, who doesn't have all of these gizmos to help fight the battle?
Communication is obviously the big thing. It was a problem then, it's a problem now. Communication is the real issue, particularly once the battle starts.
It's kind of glorified CCTV, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, this is brilliant. We tend to try and use it with
we can sell you this.
helicopters and things like that. Yeah, it'd be good.
They're on their way.
Falling for the team's bait, the Roman horsemen split from their flanks and race to engage with Hannibal's cavalry. Everything is going according to the team's plan, and the first engagement of the new Battle of Cannae is about to begin.
These cavalry have gone round. We have some come round on the flank.
Can we just see what they're doing on this side?
Steve, pikemen. Re-engage.
To Cliff's delight, it's all falling into place.
There are a lot of dead Roman horses on the field.
The Numidians have been doing their stuff.
So the Roman legionary cavalry are already showing just how crap they were.
We can start using them in the same respect from that point of view. We go up and try and get a view on the right-hand side.
After a brilliant tactical triumph on the left, Cliff's attention shifts to his right flank. The Numidian horsemen more than hold their own against the Romans. The team have made a great start, successfully neutralizing any threat from the Roman cavalry. Claire's got her horses well under control.
I'm also thinking about the left-hand side, where we've got them now encroaching, where we've got a lot of officers.
Can we come in behind them if
They're not officers.
Army, whatever.
If we draw the infantry into the middle,
Yes,
can the cavalry then come round on the flank?
yes.
The Carthaginian invaders have shocked Rome with a decisive early blow on the flanks. Now, on the right, the team's key troops, the seasoned veterans of the Spanish heavy cavalry, butcher the remaining Roman horse, leaving their agile comrades, the Numidians, to chase off the Roman stragglers. But all the while, the Roman infantry are continuing their inexorable advance.
And as you watch this, what do you think?
Generally, it's working to a degree. We have the pikemen there providing secondary support with the cavalry. So I think at the moment, it's, yeah, we're drawing it on.
But, flushed with his early success, General Cliff has missed the first group of Roman infantry approaching through the trees. They threaten to outflank his central units and launch an attack from behind.
If you look at the Carthaginian army, it's thin.
That's it. If the Romans hit this line, they'll eventually eat through it, and then what's to stop them?
That's right. Hannibal knew that the Romans were going to come through. Hannibal figured out what he wanted to do when the Romans come through. Cliff is not clear on what he's going to do when that big Roman juggernaut crushes its way through his thin line.
I think we've got more troops on the left-hand side.
Yes,
than
and we have a
in the
problem on
middle
the
and
right. And we have a problem on the right in terms of the cavalry.
But Cliff still hasn't spotted the Roman infantry ambush on his right. And now his pikemen are under attack from the rear.
We've got hand-to-hand fighting going
Yeah,
on here, but
left.
the wrong troops, I would say.
Claire, Steve, we've got hand-to-hand on this right-hand side.
But they've got long spears, so they're
Yeah.
not good on hand-to-hand.
No.
No, that's it. So we need to get something to
Yeah.
try and support that. Potentially the cavalry could do that.
The pikemen are devastating from the front, but if you can get around the side, then they've had it, because they can't swing around quickly with a 21-foot pike, or you can, but you're going to knock down all the colleagues next to you, and they're not going to be very happy bunnies either.
That bunch of Libyans are they're going to die heroically.
But they will die.
They're all going to die.
Because they've got nothing to support them.
Is this where you expected to be at this stage?
I think to some degree we
Yeah,
did.
because we're outnumbered, so
Yeah. What's
it's bound to happen, isn't it?
So what's next?
I think mainly we need to regain this right-hand flank. I think that's most probably the initial risk.
With his ambushed Libyan pikemen besieged on the right, Cliff's central forces now face the onslaught of the bulk of the Roman army. Wave upon wave of Roman legions are advancing relentlessly towards Hannibal's outnumbered troops. The generals thrust their bravest warriors, the fearsome Gallic infantry, at the Roman front line. And still the Romans keep coming.
They're coming behind the trees.
He's pulling in his left flank just as those Romans come through.
He was obviously or you assume he was hoping to outflank, but they're just heading right into the path of the right-hand side of the Roman attack.
After his initial success defeating the Roman cavalry, Cliff seems to have no strategy to press home his advantage.
What exactly is going on there?
Can we have a bit of feedback? We're starting to lose where we are.
Sarah, what are your thoughts? What should we be doing?
I'm worried about what's going on over here. This group of, is it Legion? Yeah.
Do you want to remind them about the Libyan forces? Or?
Yeah. Who's got the Libyans in their division?
I think they're with me, but I can't see where they are.
They're right behind you, actually, Steve. You've still got them in reserve, which you might want to...
You don't have to be so nice. You're not at the office. Don't say you might want to.
It has degenerated into a series of melees all over the field. And that's fine for the Romans. The problem is they've lost a lot of the Carthaginians.
Yes, and many of the best troops as well, and many of your cavalry.
Claire, Steve, might be worthwhile to get a quick look at what the battlefield is. Just
Yeah, I am. I've used all my troops. I've got nothing left.
they're pulled back. That's fine.
So we need
Regrouping.
Steve's.
Right, pan back further, Adam.
These are the Libyans
Right,
here.
this is what we have in reserve still.
That's the general there.
Yep, but there,
front
just
of
in
him,
front
the
of the
green
general,
men.
are the Libyans there.
Which we
Yeah.
need to start moving, I would say, because mustn't lose our general. That'd be a disaster.
You're going to win.
It's looking promising at the moment.
Cliff has left his Gallic infantry to face the main Roman onslaught. But without support, even their natural ferocity cannot hold back the Roman advance.
Now, that Gallic line has collapsed over here.
That's right.
That's gone, and the Romans are pushing through, all
There are a lot
according to
of
plan.
Gallic corpses lying on the field. And the Romans are able now to start on against these.
These are the Spanish, by the look of it. The Spanish infantry that are quite good troops. They're experienced, but they're not as heavily armoured as the legionaries.
And the Pilum has taken a toll on them. And there we have that brisk
Now they're coming in
charge.
from the flank. Yep, exactly. Just what the Romans want.
The Carthaginian army are in trouble. Split into small pockets by the sheer weight of their enemy, even their best troops are locked in close-quarter combat. The generals need to make some quick decisions.
How do you think Cliff's doing?
He's doing all right, actually, considering it's so confusing.
He's quietly confident of victory. He was just telling me. He's hopeful.
Well, you know, half the battle is putting a good face on it.
Oh, we've had more than half the battle. So you think you might still win?
It's difficult because we haven't got, like, a particular objective. It's not like we're fighting to gain control of a river crossing or a castle or a, you know... It seems to be about who kills more people than the other, which is a bit, you know, at the point when do you stop and know you've won.
Did you hear what Sarah just said? She said it's not as though we have a particular objective. And sadly, I think that characterizes what they're doing. They had a plan, but their plan was not durable. And when their plan started to fall apart, they didn't know what to do because they didn't have a clear vision. What does Hannibal Barca do if he realizes he's being massacred? He's in Italy, and it is a long way home, and he can expect absolutely no mercy if he's taken to Rome in chains. I mean, they're gonna cut him up into thin strips, aren't they?
Who have we actually got left alive?
What's that in the trees?
That's the general in the trees.
Right. And to the left, there's a unit to the left. Left scan left.
That's the Gallic infantry that I'm just tempting the...
Oh, no, they're closing it.
if they're still in them left by the time I get there.
Oh, we're going to die very soon.
Oh, this is going to get ugly.
Yes.
With all their early advantage squandered, there's only one way the battle can now go.
All right, here's the last gasp. And the team is now putting in their tactical reserve against overwhelming odds.
It is an appropriately Gallic thing to
It is.
charge in with your last warband.
I'm just trying to think if we can push them towards the...
Do you want to stay and watch this or leave early?
No. We'll have to stay and watch it. Defeat imminent.
Spin your way out of that one.
We did our best. We're the heroic losers.
Oh.
We lost the battle, we may win the war.
See what our historians thought of what you did. Here
could hear them
come
laughing at the
Eric
back.
and Adrian, and here they are to look you in the eye and tell you what they thought of your strategy. Gentlemen?
First thing I saw you guys do was sort out your own command structure. And it was coldly, brutally efficient. There was almost no visible conflict. The lieutenants did a lieutenant's job. The man in command was Cliff. One of the generals did not function as a general and provided advice, situational awareness, and helped the general, but was clearly reduced to a subordinate role. Yeah? You did not very often advance beyond the bird table here, whereas Cliff spends almost every moment of this battle standing there at the rail, looking over the shoulders of his subordinates, making sure that he can make decisions at key points.
You set out, you were looking around, you were being very efficient, very well organised in how you tried to find out what the situation was. All of that very, very professional. It looked good.
You instantly saw that what you needed to do was, for instance, draw the Romans in, which was absolutely the right thing to do. Yes, they did steamroller over you, but
so it worked really
well.
well.
It was the right thing to do. You saw that what you wanted to do was strip the Roman cavalry away from the Roman infantry, and you did it. And you lured the Roman cavalry into making a pointless attack against your left. Well done once again. Your concept of operations was well thought out for the initial stages.
It was a defeat that went perfectly to plan.
Well, because the difficulty was you didn't know the way Hannibal knew, that every single time you go up against these guys, they drive through you like a freight train. And took Hannibal a few tries to figure out that he had to plan for that. You guys didn't plan for that. They were huge, they were rumbling towards you, they steamrollered over you, and you didn't know what to do.
You know, you were talking about, well, let's get around the flanks, that'll be a good thing, all that sort of thing. But in the end, there's a hell of a lot of Roman infantry there, and they're going to keep on going and keep on pushing forward. You've got to do something. Somehow you've got to stall it and then stop it.
So what happened was, you went up against the biggest army that the Romans had ever put together to date, and they beat you fair and square. But that's okay, because Hannibal couldn't stop it either.
Did Hannibal lose in?
Well, let's have a look. These guys know what happened.
Good question. Hannibal has been fighting against the Romans for a while. Hannibal knows that those guys, that huge mass coming thundering towards him, is going to go through over and over again. No matter how badly it goes for the Romans, those heavy infantry always come through. So what Hannibal does is he builds a box. He builds a box for the Romans to come into. He puts his Gauls and his Spaniards out front, and he pushes them forward to get them engaged sooner, to make sure they come rolling into that box. And that's a trap door.
But the Romans, we're thinking we've got more legionaries than we've ever had before. Even in the defeats we've suffered, as Eric said, these guys have broken through somewhere. They've always given a really good account of them. We've got a narrow plain. We know our problem is that our cavalry keep losing, because there's not very many of them and they're not that good. We've got a river on one side, we've got high ground over here. You can't do what you've done in the past and just trot around here whilst you keep the cavalry busy, envelop the whole thing. So we've got all of our legions, all of our allied troops in this great big block. It's a great big mass of men, the units much closer together than usual. It can go in one direction, that way, and that's it.
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cavalry here on the left, and I'm going to turn them against those Roman cavalry there and make them go away. And let my guys form up. I've got use for those guys later. Meanwhile, those Roman heavy infantry are going to come into my box.
If your cavalry are happy killing them or chasing them around over the landscape, doesn't matter. This lot, this massive phalanx of people here is going to win me the battle. So I've advanced these a little bit, see what's happening over here. These are the skirmishers. They don't get in, they don't destroy you, but they keep these people busy. And as long as my infantry have time to win, then doesn't matter to me. You know, if I have rather less cavalry than I had to start off with, won't make much difference. So I slam in here, right at the center.
Completely unsurprising. It's exactly what the Romans always do. And they come steamrollering through, and they're squashed together, and they're in a big, huge mass. Big mass. Romans as far as the eye can see. The third line squished into the second line, into the first line. And I know this is going to happen. I've seen it all before. I let my guys fall back. Suddenly, they stop. They turn, they face the Romans, and here, remember those Libyans? Remember how well those Libyans held together? You saw those pikes? Libyans, bookends, right into both sides. Squash, start killing them. Slaughter, slaughter, slaughter.
I should just explain that Eric is a senior lecturer in war studies at Sandhurst. He watched all this.
Well, we don't use the word slaughter very much.
Now, Eric then does something frightfully fancy, or I'll probably do it for him because I don't think his arms are long enough. Yeah. Usually, your horsemen see the enemy have gone and just disappear off into the sunset after them. But he doesn't. Hasdrubal, the commander, brings them round behind these Roman cavalry, the allies. And they promptly realize being taken on two sides is not a good move, so they run away. These cavalry then stop a second time. The Numidians do what they're good at. They chase off the fugitives, but it then leaves these people to seal off the trap.
So that's what really happened. Having seen that, Don't you wish you'd done it?
Don't be.
Well, in many respects, you did very well, so congratulations. Unfortunately, throughout the programme, you've been double parked, so thanks very much indeed. Nice to see you. That was very good. I like your characters.
Well done.
It's Alexander the Great versus the Persian Empire in Time Commanders tonight at 8. Those who lived through the Communist Revolution in China remember in People's Century on UK TV History next.